Okay, so today I want to talk about, are there safe versions of curveballs? Because I hear this a lot from coaches where they're like, "Oh yeah, my son, no, he throws a curveball, but it's not a curveball. He doesn't turn his wrist or break his wrist. It's the safe version that he learned from someone." Uh, that is a complete utter myth. I don't know when that started, sometime in the past, but if the ball is curving, there is no possible way to throw it quote unquote safe. Now, to back up real quick, research from the ASMI has been relatively clear that the fastball puts the most stress through the elbow and shoulder. So that's the number one pitch to get injured on. The curveball, kids that throw more curveballs report more pain, but the curveball in general puts less stress on the arm than the fastball does. Ditto with the changeup. Although kids, I shouldn't say ditto with the changeup. The changeup is less stressful than the fastball, but the reports about more pain do not apply to the changeup. So fastball most stressful, changeup least stressful, curveball slash just breaking ball, curveball slash slider, they're lumped in I think together. Those have less stress than a fastball, but kids who throw them report more pain than kids that don't. So, should you not throw a curveball? I'll cover that in another topic, but is there a safe way to throw a curveball? The answer is no, because here's how curveballs work. If you're throwing a curveball that's not utter hogwash, other trash, utter garbage, because most curveballs are from youth pitchers. When kids come to me for lessons, I'd say 1 in 50 have a good changeup, like a changeup that is repeatable, that has some sink, that has some run, that I would qualify as like a good pitch. Very, very few have a good changeup. Curveballs, slightly more, I'd say 1 in 20. Almost everyone they get around the pitch comes out like this. So here's how curveballs work. You have to get the direction of spin in the same way the direction is traveling. So if you want to throw a pitch that has a 12-6 break, it'll just rotate 4 like this with top spin that is 12 to 6 top spin. 1 to 7, 1 to 7 top spin, right? If you're a lefty, 11 to 5, whatever, who cares about lefties? So that's how curveballs work. Now, most kids throw curveballs, they get to the side of it. So it comes out with either like a side spin like this, or it has like a mixture. It's a sloppy, it has some top spin with a lot of side spin mixed in, and it doesn't have a clear spin axis. So basically the way curveballs work is, when you have a ball spinning in the direction it's traveling, whether it's 12-6 or 1-7, it creates a low pressure and high pressure zone. The high pressure zone up top forces the ball to break while it has low pressure on the bottom. It's basically the opposite of how planes take off. So we need to create the fastest spin and the best, cleanest spin axis. The better the spin axis, so when we don't have sloppy other spin mixed in, the better the pitch breaks. So to throw any kind of curveball, there's no way that you don't like break your wrist or whatever, because throwing through it just like that would create kind of a slider, but even sliders are to the front of the ball and then to the side of the ball. So they have a mixture of bullet spin and forward spin. That kind of makes the dot of a slider. So there's no way you can throw a curveball just like a fastball. So I'm coming through it like this. There's no way I can do that and impart the forward spin that I want. To get this to happen, we have to get our finger to the front of the baseball, or mostly to the front of the baseball, where the ball ends up coming out here, and then our hand pronates over as soon as it leaves our fingertips. There's no way to impart forward topspin going through the ball, throwing it the same quote-unquote way as a fastball. It's just not physically possible. Lots of players, they do things that they think they're doing that don't actually happen. I remember I had a teammate in 2015, and he swore that I was like, how do you throw your curveball? Because he did a pretty good curveball. And he said, I throw a knuckle curve. He's like, yeah, mine's really good because I increase the spin by pushing with my knuckle. I'm like, no, you don't. He's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, no, you don't. That doesn't make any sense at all. That's idiotic, because his knuckle, he doesn't understand how the ball is coming out. The knuckle is basically just a placeholder. I'm not going to get too off topic here, but the knuckle is a placeholder. This finger is still getting to the front of the ball to allow it to come out with good topspin, right? This knuckle, he said he was pushing it like that he was increasing the speed. Number one, how fast could I possibly push a baseball with my finger, right? Like just what, I could get like 1 revolution with that? And it's going this way. How is this knuckle then going to push it along that way? So we took a high-speed video with the iPhone, and sure enough, he was absolutely not doing it like that. He was throwing it just like anyone else. The knuckle was just kind of there along for the ride. the video was a little foggy and he was like in disbelief. He's like, no, I still do it that way. He didn't want to believe it, which doesn't matter. Like, his curveball was still good. The output was fine. But anyway, just an example that just because someone tells you to do it some way, I've taught kids to, like, hey, do it this way, and they naturally do it a different way, and it's good. So some coach probably told the kid, like, oh yeah, just throw it like this, and just go through it and don't break your wrist, or don't, whatever they call it, not breaking your wrist, but whatever. And then he probably just started to figure out how to make it break. And, oh, that's the safe curveball, because I taught him don't go through the middle. Well, he is going over top, and that's sort of what exposes your elbow a little more when you're releasing the pitch in this sort of like supinated position. So this is pronated, and this is supinated, where my forearm flexors are a little bit less active, so they don't protect my elbow ligament quite as much. So that's kind of the long and the short about this safe curveball. There is no safe curveball. If you're throwing a curveball that actually curves, you have to get on the side or the front of the ball to do it. The side is going to be a crappy curveball. To the front is going to be a better curveball. So if you throw a curveball that actually curves in any legitimate way, it's not a safe curveball. That's not a thing that exists. However, throwing a curveball is not the worst thing in the world. So it's okay to throw a curveball at youth baseball. I don't teach my pitchers to do that personally. I want them to rely and live and die by their fastball location and their changeup. I want them to develop that pitch so they can mix in the curveball when they get older and eventually rely on it as a 20 to 25% pitch. But most youth pitchers throw their curveball a ton, 35 to 50 to 60% sometimes, and that's a travesty because they don't learn to pitch. Usually it's a curveball they're not going to use anyway because they're going to have to overhaul it because they're doing a crappy Little League curveball. So it's not like they're even developing the one they're going to use the rest of their life. They're using this, it's like riding around town in a golf cart. Yeah, like you might be the coolest kid riding around going places in a golf cart, but as soon as you get old enough, you'll get a real car and throw that thing in the scrap heap. So the crappy curveballs that kids will throw 50 in a game of, it's not even a curveball they're developing for the long term. They're throwing it the wrong way, so they're getting absolutely nothing out of it. So that's my philosophy. But look, if you're a 12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid, and you throw a decent curveball and you throw 60 pitches and you throw 10 curveballs, that's not going to ruin your arm. It's completely fine. It's not going to ruin your arm. Might slow your development a little bit as a pitcher, but it might not also. I mean, there's no absolutes in any of this stuff. You can certainly throw a curveball as a youth pitcher and be fine, be healthy. Tons of big leaguers have done that in the past. Completely fine. But just if you're acting like it's a safe version, just don't, because there's not. Just embrace what it is. It's a real curveball if it's curving. So let's just not pretend. All right, so just a little bit about the quote-unquote safe curveball.